All right, guys, we're here at Corvette World. My friend Robert, one of the salesmen here, Corvette World, Dallas, Texas. So we're here, and Corvette World sells about 40% of their cars to people out of state.
Yes, it varies per month, but typically between 20 to 40. Yep.
See, and what happens is if you guys will ship the car there, so you never get an opportunity to do a walkthrough like you did with me when I bought my C7 Z06 here.
That's correct.
So I bought my C8 Corvette at a dealership in California. So of course, my salesman Al had never had an opportunity to do a walkthrough on the car with me. So today, Robert is going to do a walkthrough for everybody who has bought a car and they live out of state and never got that walkthrough. We're going to go ahead and do that today.
Absolutely. Now, I am a previous both GM and Ford employee. I used to have the, shall we say, the trained walkthroughs.
Yes.
Both sides, but since joining Corvette World, I've come up with kind of my own methodology here. But for the video purposes, what I'm going to do is I'll keep it simple, stupid. We're going to go ahead, we'll do the outside first, and then we'll do the inside. And then we'll just keep it that way.
All right, you guys stay tuned.
Well, to put it simply, you got control surfaces, i.e. buttons, places to open up stuff on the outside of the vehicle. So we'll start there. So first off, the front of the vehicle, obviously, you got this beautiful Accelerate yellow Vette here. There's a button right here on the driver's side upper front grille. You can see it right here. Press up on that. That opens this up. And then, of course, that accesses your frunk. So while in the frunk, obviously, you know, Jason's got stuff in here.
I do.
When a vehicle is new and it's a Z51, you'll usually get these aero components for if you decide to track it, they funnel more air to the brakes. This is a similar thing they did in the wide body cars back in the 7th generation when they were new as well. If you plug in your battery tender, like Jason's got the box for the battery tender in here, the battery tender for the C8 plugs in the front, whereas in the 7 they were in the back on the passenger side. Now they're in the front. And just like the 7, you gently put the cord out here, make sure the adapter is on the ground, and gently close the hood, or the front hood, on it, obviously without pinching the wire.
That's what I say, I normally do the first click.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just enough to close it, shut off the light, but still run it. So now that's another thing when closing it. This has been covered many times before, but we'll rehash it. It does not have a takedown. It's a 2-click close. 1, 2 to secure it. Be handy of you to keep a microfiber towel on you for handprints. He has the Stingray R appearance package, so I get to cheat a little bit because he's got vinyl.
Exactly.
But you know, especially here in like places like Texas where we get hot, you know, skin oils on paint, wax, ceramic coatings, and you don't want a handprint.
Yeah.
So you come around the side. You know, general explanation. Right now, this is a convertible. This is the easiest giveaway for whether it's a coupe or convertible from the rear. If it's a coupe, it's going to have a deck lid with the engine visible. If it's a convertible, you got the spider humps and the flat glass pane there. And of course, you got a button for the frunk. Okay, you pop that right there. It's in the same place it's been for both the C6 and the C7 as well. Although the C6, you had to have the key physically on you in order for it to work, whereas the 7, the key be in the proximity and still do it.
Yes.
So you open it up. Obviously, you got cargo nets. He's got the all-weather mat package in here as well. And gloves for his crime scenes.
Exactly.
No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Exactly.
And this one here.
These are the Jake Skull floor mats. I really like these.
That's correct. Yeah, those are upgraded. You come with their WeatherTech style rubber mats for the front, trunk, and the floor mats on the inside with the cross flags.
Exactly.
And all right, so when you close this, same thing as previous gens. You got the slow takedown, so never slam it. I've been saying this for years. I highly recommend the accessory bumper bibs.
Yes.
You know, they go over here, especially if you got the high wings.
I would agree.
You know, because you want to be able to load stuff in and not risk scratching or damaging your spoilers. Now, if you have a 2020 through 2022, you'll have an access point here for power outages when it comes to keys. Now, Jason has this very, very high-speed carbon fiber cover here, so I'd have to snap this open and get it out to get the key out.
Yes.
But the older ones, if I were to lift this up, you would see a keyhole underneath there, kind of in the middle, where you'd be able to twist and click and open it up.
Correct.
For reasons that, to my knowledge, have not been really disclosed, they've elected to do away with that feature 23 and newer. So for now on, when you want to if you have a dead fob battery or dead vehicle battery, to get into the vehicle, you've got to access through this keyhole under here.
That's interesting, right here, correct?
Yes. If you get up under it, you'll see it kind of right up in there.
It's further back. Oh.
Yeah, it's further up in there.
Yeah.
And of course, like the C7, it has a laser cut, flat kind of shaped key. Pop it in there, twist to the right, opens the door. Now you say, well, what does that do at that point? Well, okay, so if you need to get access to the battery, your next step, if you have that, you open it up, and you have to go, and this is not going to be something that's going to be easy to film, but you have to get way up under here for a pull cable. You're not going to be able to see it, but you got to pull it twice. 1, 2. That, of course, will gain you access to the front. And opens it up.
Well, at least it's not.
Now the
it's not
battery.
that complicated.
Now the battery. You want me to show you where the battery's at?
Yes, I know where it is, but yes.
All right. So to get to the battery, let's get rid of this leaf.
A leaf in my car?
Yes. How dare you?
I know.
All
Steve would have a heart attack.
So gently extract this plastic piece, like so. You do the same on the other side.
So lift and pull.
Yep, nice and gentle. You want to break your clips. And then these just snap. You start 1, 2, and then that lit, and then you got to go to the other side.
Do the same.
1, 2. Gently lift. Oh, there's one more. Forgot about that one that's right up under there. And there we go. And there's your battery.
So yeah, you see there's the clips right there is where they go on this piece. And of course your battery access.
Yep.
That's really impressive.
Your magnetic ride. See that?
Yep.
Your magnetic ride. Obviously, you got inlet here. You've got the battery, brake fluid, washer fluid.
Very nice. This is a lot easier. Actually, I think this is a lot easier because on my Lambo, you had to.
It's intimidating. The very first time I did it, we got one of our first 2020s. I purposely opened up the owner's book and practiced it because I wanted to be able to demonstrate this.
Yeah.
Is this something I normally do on delivery? No, but this is for your viewing pleasure, and Jason is nice enough to let me use his C8 as a guinea pig. So,
exactly.
all right, so now when getting it back on, obviously everything in reverse. Get it nice back in there.
You see where those little
under?
Clips?
See right here, the big thing is right here. You got to get that underneath.
All right.
And then you get them back in. And then you just line it up and then snap her down. See? Snap, snap. Right down here. Snap. And snap up there you already did.
Okay.
Make sure it's fit. And then the side clips. So now you go right here.
It's just like when I film with Steve. He does all the work.
Hear that, Steve? You do all the work.
Exactly.
All right, same thing. Line up the snap clip holes and let's get them all snapped in there. There you go.
Nice and finished.
So this generation, like the C7, has a power folding convertible top you can drop with your remote. You also have remote start. So let's do the remote start. It's a little bit different than the C7 and other GM vehicles where usually you hit the lock and you press and hold the remote start button. In this generation, you hit the lock and hit this twice, which is more similar to Ford and Chrysler. Now I'm going to highlight something that's different about this generation from the C7. So you see I got a remote started. Now if I want to do the convertible top, you hit unlock and press and hold that button. Oh, yours didn't do it. They must have changed that. I know in the 2020, when I did a remote start and then I did the top, it would shut off.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, so obviously 23, they've changed that. I know for a fact 2020s and 21s, it stops when I do it. So obviously his does not, so that must be a change for 23 that I haven't played with yet. So there you go. And then, so when you have remote start, it's pretty straightforward. Just get in, brake. Oops, don't hit the washer wipers, but yeah, and now you're in run mode. All right, kill that for now. Sitting in it, let's talk, since we've already talked about emergency procedures, let's talk about the inside. Since the 2005 Vet, we've had this evacuation emergency button here has not changed. It's the same thing. When you have a power outage or God forbid you have an emergency situation, You pull up on that, that'll release the lock so you can get the door open. An identical one sits here on the passenger side. Okay, so when I do demonstration drives for my customers, I like, or if I'm sitting shotgun and I'm talking about it from the passenger side, I like to do it in a left to right format, just to encompass the controls in the interior cockpit here. First off, pretty straightforward, memory seats. So for those of you that are previous Corvette owners, C5 and C6 is essentially you press and hold and wait either for the little light in the case of a C5 or in the case of a C6, you press it and hold it, you hear a beep beep and saves the memory seats. Whereas in the C7s and just like the C8s, you get it to your position, you have to hit set and then press and hold to save that setting. And I just totally took away his memory seats. So
it's okay, we'll reset them later.
Okay, sorry about that, Jason.
No worries.
Got to make sure I mess up his car before we go. All right, over here on the driver's side door, this is a convertible. So when you have convertible, you have 4 window-style controls, whereas the coupes, you only have 2. These obviously are for the passenger driver windows. Then this is for the convertible top and the rear back window, which sits behind us here. You can roll this up or down. So with the convertible top, obviously for the C6 and the C7, they had it here, so you would hold your hand here while driving and then press and hold it like this and wait for the top to go up. If you're doing it in motion in the case of the C7 and the C6, you had to be in the park position to do it, wait for it to come here and pull a handle to click. Well, in the C8, if we do it just like the C7, you hold it. If you're driving up to 30 miles an hour, you can do it. You just keep the right hand on the steering wheel, the left, right, where on that left-hand side button there, until you hear the chime. Just like the 7, there's a chime and you get a notification on your display screen there telling you when the top is secured. Folding motion complete. Now, if you keep holding it, it'll roll up all the windows.
Yes.
So that's that gives you that. I'm going to go ahead and roll this down because let's get more lighting in here because Jason's got these amazing tinted windows.
I do.
So, and we don't need to get too dark and cozy in here. All right, so that covers that portion of it. This is new for Corvette. These are power folding mirrors. So if you have a 2 or a 3 LT, you get that feature. And of course, it power folds the mirrors in and out. And then above that, very straightforward, is your mirror controls with a contemporary D-pad. All right, changes. Okay, for those coming out of the C7, you'll know that the button for the trunk or deck lid and your motion sensor will be right here on the left-hand side of your dashboard here. That has since moved to here for your deck lid, and now you've also got a frunk as well. So they're in this door jamb here. And then the part here where in the previous Vettes, you'd have that deck lid and motion sensor, you now have the e-brake. You press it, and unlike the 7 where you had to pull up and then push down, this one's a push for both.
Gotcha.
It just pushes in both ways. And then you also have now the, if you want to control your brightness, see I can change the brightness level. That is now down here. In the 7 it was up here, and the C6 it was over here, and an annoying button that you'd always used to bump with your knee and kill your battery overnight. Yes, frequent problem with that one. So they got it here. It doesn't press in. It just twists to the left and the right. And if you twist it all the way to the right, it does not leave the dome lights on. So eventually, after a moment here, these dome lights will come off. See, there they go. See, I'm pressing it. I'm pulling it all the way to the right. It has no effect on the dome lights. The dome light is separately controlled in this car. All right, next, I'll twist the wheel so you can see. Heads-up display controls. Identical setup to the C7, just in a slightly different position. You got the HUD control, moves it up or down. Info changes the way the display looks and the brightness level. It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, when you're sitting here in the cockpit and the car is running, you'll be able to see it and make your settings. If you're in link to drive mode still with the mode select, when you change your modes, if you go into sport or track, you'll see the display theme change both here and on the central screen. On the stalks, no change from the previous generation. Light controls, turn signals, and wiper controls. No change there. Paddle shifting, just like the C7, is competition style. Downshift, upshift, only now we're in a dual clutch transmission. And metal paddle shifters are standard instead of the plastic ones with the optional painted ones in the previous gen. The steering wheel itself pretty much also has the same kind of buttons, but in a slightly different configuration and added some bonus items. One, A lot of people say, what's this Z button here?
Yeah.
The answer is that is the 6th mode option. So the C7 had 5 different modes: weather, eco, tour, sport, and track. The C8s have weather, my mode, tour, sport, track, and Z mode. So what's different? Well, Z mode and my mode are customizable modes. So let me demonstrate. I'm going to start the car. So we got it here. Right now the car is in tour mode. Just like the previous gen, you have, instead of a T, you've got symbols. So if I click it all the way over, there's weather mode, you get a snowflake. Okay, whereas in 7 you had a W. Okay, but unlike the 7, if I keep clicking, it won't reset over to the other side. It bookends now on weather. So then you give it one click to the right, you got my mode, you got a little person figure. And see, the exhaust just got louder? That's because Jason has his set up like this. See the edit button? See, versus weather mode. See, it tells you everything's nerfed out. And you go there, but see, you can edit it. So this is what my mode is. The idea behind these 2 customizable modes is pretty straightforward. This would be, my mode is more of the mode for around town. Yeah. So in the case of a magnetic ride car, which Jason has, you would have the suspension nerfed down for a cruising ride, but 9 out of 10 people turn the engine sound up to sport or track, which see I can do here and change it. I can also nerf it out to stealth. You know, however you prefer. See, settings applied, and see it got quiet.
It did get too quiet.
Yeah, so, but yeah, too quiet for Jason. We're going to turn that back up for him. Confirm changes. It gives you that option. So we'll back out of there, and that saves the settings. Then next you have tour, again symbolized by the little road logo. You get slightly elevated engine sound and engine shift, but everything else is still nerfed out, and you can tell everything's grayed out. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and do the Z mode. See, same thing, customizable. It goes to sport mode theme. You can edit. And again, very similar, only you got some more options. See, you've got the 4 that you had in my mode, but you also add PTM. That's your performance traction management. That's for your launch control. So, or if you're racing, you can change, see how much the computer automatically inputs. Yep, see, look, suspension engine shift will be affected. And TSC, ESC, limited disabled. See, it's letting you know that ahead of time. But again, this is the idea. If you wanted to fiddle around with the launch control, you can do it from Z mode as well as sport and track. So it's just very customizable. See, we're going to leave it inactive back to where it was. You notice, see, one thing you didn't have in the my mode is the brake feel. See, that's another, you can adjust how responsive the brakes are, how responsive the transmission behaves, how tight you want the steering ratio, so if you want it like relaxed, or if you go all the way to track. So for those of you that have C7s, you may remember this, that you had that in the settings mode. You can change the steering ratio and the exhaust through the engine sound management. So essentially they adapted that into full-blown customizable modes, because in the 7 you can only adjust the suspension by the exact mode. Well, this one you could do it through the my modes and the mode selector. So we're gonna exit out of that and see it saves your settings. Then, like previous generations, you got sport mode. Obviously, the theme changes. Everything's in the sport setting. And you can still do launch control here. You hit the, when you're in gear, you can hit the traction control button twice, and now you got ESC competitive mode. Then you would hit the brake and you could floor it. That's in sport mode. Some of the best 0 to 60 times are done in sport mode because the suspension is not as stiff, which gives it a little bit more give, which allows a little bit more weight to fall back on the wheels. Just something to keep in mind. If you're running these cars at the drag track, experiment. You can find out which mode works best for you. And then let's get out of there. And then let's go track mode. Track mode, of course, blah, everything's maxed out. Really straightforward. Just like the C7, this is your maximum performance mode if you're going to go to the racetrack or race somebody on the street.
Nice.
All right, let's go back to the park. I'm going to go ahead and let me shut this off because I can cover the infotainment here. Wrapping up the steering wheel though, cruise control settings, and this clicks through display modes here on the central screen are virtually the same as the 7, only now the menu controls are kind of on the right hand side. But other than that, it's unchanged. And you now have a heated steering wheel if you get a 2 or 3 LT, which is a nice plus, especially down here in the cold. It's a nice day, but it's cold, and you can grab it. Or some people just like having a warm steering wheel, even if it's warm outside. But just like the 7, you've got a home page. But now, instead of an LCD screen, you've got this iPad-style screen. It's angled directionally to you, whereas the 7 was, but it was a little lower down. This is definitely a lot more intuitive, and it's a lot faster, just like an iPad. Just like previous gen, you got an Apple CarPlay, Android Auto capability, but if you got a 21 and newer, that feature is now wireless. So you don't have to have the phone plugged in to access it. But some of it's straightforward. Obviously, you go and you got your different options, AM, FM, XM. If you got devices paired or plugged in, you know, you can access through them, and they'll all be listed here as you plug them in. Every USB port can connect to a device if you elect to go that route. All right, factory navigation system. Looks like you've never did your terms and conditions. Yeah, that's through OnStar. Just ignore that. But you know, essentially, there's some connection OnStar with this for traffic and for turn by turn, and you have, of course, SiriusXM feeding in traffic information. So if the SiriusXM is active, you'll get some. This system here, while not as good as Waze or Google Maps, is actually way better than the system they had in the C7. I find it's a lot faster and more reliable. But if you do use your maps, it's pretty straightforward. In this case, Jason has a CarPlay. You got your maps, so if you want nav, you got your navigation system, and you've got your compatible apps. So when you go to your compatible apps page, see everything on the iPhone that's compatible will display there, and you can utilize in various ways. Like I mentioned, Waze. Waze is a very good navigation app. You know, factory apps, and of course music, podcasts. Music is usually stored music in your phone, but you can also tap these into other things like Pandora. All right, we're gonna get out of there. Wrapping this up, we do have different cameras. I'm gonna turn the car back on. The reason why I shut this car off is because of the fumes. I gotta watch this as we're inside. But I'm gonna start the car again. All right, so in the C7, you used to have to tap the screen to go to the camera icon, or you would just go to reverse to get the cameras on.
Right.
The C8 still has that feature where you go to reverse, you got it on, only now you have a high-definition camera, which is definitely a lot
better.
And just like the 7, you go to the front, you got the 3-way, but unlike the 7, you also have the option to go with the single magnified view, and look at how much better that is. So definitely improvements over the 7. You can take the guidelines on or off if desired. Now, just to clarify, there are not front sensors in this car. There's also not adaptive cruise control or collision alert yet. Rumors of it coming with the E-Ray are out there, but we'll see. But you do have, in the case of all trim levels have the rear camera with guidelines and backup sensors. Even the 1LT at least has backup sensors. So I'm going to disengage the e-brake here. I'm going to back the car up and see as I approach, see the parking brake released. As I start approaching, see, you start over here on your display, you start getting the sonar distance readers, and you start getting the little exclamation point triangle there as I approach. And see, it starts filling as I get closer. And then once you get to the red, it'll start really beeping at you like that. And there you go. Once you hit that, means don't park any closer.
So you only have a few more inches to go when you're driving,
That's
right?
correct. It's roughly 6 inches.
Okay.
Once you hear that, it's about 6 inches. All right, so I'm going to go back forward. But let's just say you're driving, you're approaching a parking spot. Are you really going to stop, reverse, and drive? No, you're not. But unlike the 7, you don't have the camera icon up here. It is now down here in a much more easier to use button to activate your front, or in the case if you're pulling an alley, peripheral-based curve view cameras with still some front view as well. So
I actually really like that button right there.
Yeah, it's better than the touchscreen button 100%. In my opinion. But you know,
it's such a quick access, whereas before you'd have to go in. And
yeah, it's cool. Like I can even do it while parking. And look at this, while I'm there, if you want to show your cameras to your buddies, you can click on these. There's the backup. There's the front. Or excuse me, you got 2 different backup angles. See, look at that. You got one that's kind of more fish-eyed, one more flat and zoomed, and of course you got the fronts too, and then with or without guidelines. Yeah, so
I use this a lot in my garage because I have a certain kind of distance I want in the back so that people have access to walk in the front. So I'll be using my front when I'm pulling in, and then I'll just hit that little button to show the back and make sure I'm in just enough to close the garage door. Yep.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's definitely a lot better, a lot easier to park these things than any other previous generation of that. People complain about the blind spots in these cars. They definitely have very prominent blind spots in the convertible, but if you get a 2 and 3 LT, you can see the little logos right here. Those will highlight. Those are your blind spot monitors. And as I mentioned before, when you're backing up, 2 and 3 LTs come standard with rear cross traffic alert. So it'll alert you. It'll, on the camera, it'll go beep, beep, beep that somebody's coming from the left or the right.
Right.
Now, if you're parked near a highway, like out front of our dealership, it detects the traffic on the frontage road, so that can be annoying sometimes. But it's serving a safety purpose, letting you know something is coming from that direction. And the better notice, the less chance of you backing into somebody or backing in or getting hit. So it is a cool feature. And these mirrors also are a lot larger than previous generations. So just like before, you get them to the right angle to overlap your blind spot. And the passenger mirror actually sticks out further that side because these cars got really fat fenders.
Ends, yeah.
You know, so that sticks it out real nicely. Next and last camera we'll cover is right up here. So you have what they call a rear camera mirror. To my knowledge, the first Chevrolet to get this was the 2018 Chevy Traverse, and then 2020 they introduced it into Corvette. It is standard on all convertibles, even a 1LT will have this feature, but in coupes it's got to be a 2 or a 3. And you don't just get this camera view, it's like a screen, so I can point in any other direction, so there's no reflection. Right. So that's more, you have to kind of get used to it. You know, if you got astigmatism, this might annoy you, so you may just want to run with the regular mirror, but you got to treat it as if it's another screen when it's in this mode. But it does have some control features too. So you press this check button here, see this? This adjusts your brightness. Check it again. This is your zoom feature, see I can zoom it in and zoom it out. Check it again, you can move the angle up, so you haven't got more of his spoiler, or above it if I need to. And so you can pick and choose which one works best for you. Definitely play around with it and you'll find which feature works the best. However, it is in the case of convertibles, if you put the top down, guess what? It goes away. You might as well turn it off because it's on the top.
Correct.
Whereas the coupes, it's always in place.
Yeah, because basically it's in the trunk at that point.
Yes, exactly. So, all right. I mentioned before about the motion sensor from the C7 that was introduced in 2014. It is still available in C8. It's even more sensitive than ever. We've had them where the cars have been locked up with the windows open. We just stick our hand in there a little bit and it's setting the alarm off. It's pretty sensitive.
Yes. That is
right up here. And the reason why it says off is because it's automatically on unless you press that and turn it off, in which case this little LED bar here will illuminate orange. And then it tells you motion sensor's off. But if you want it on, you just hit it and it's automatically on. OnStar, of course, is up here now instead of the mirror. Thank God. That's definitely a way better way to go, in my opinion. And, of course, the hazards are now up here in the head. While we're up here, the visors, the HomeLink system hasn't changed for a long time. You get the 3 buttons and you can pair it to a garage door or exterior gate that's compatible. It is sponsored by HomeLink. They've been around since the C6, so nothing's changed other than the buttons are a little rubbery. And I will say the vanity lights are probably another part that carried over from the C7 because these are almost identical. And why fix it if it ain't broke? So it's just, though that part, that's one of the few C7 carryovers. All right, coming back to wrap up the interior portion here is the center cluster. This is the part that some people get intimidated by because they're looking at this and they're like, whoa, what is all this line of buttons?
Wall of buttons.
Well, it's actually not as hard as it looks. Now, one thing I will highlight while we're here, notice you got notches and you got little dips here and here. When they designed all of this cockpit interior, they wanted everything to be a touch and feel. You got a push, pull, push for your transmission. You've got everything is touchable and you can sense it with your fingers and do it without looking once you memorize it. That's the idea behind that. Okay. All right, so believe it or not, it is almost identical to the C7, just instead of in a bar format here where they're staggered, they're just spread out. You've got your heated ventilated seats and your temperature control for your driver's side, which if you go sync, you'll also be controlling the dual climate from this control. And then you've got the rest of the stuff is really basic. Automatic, where you want your fan blowing, obviously power off, the AC compressor on or off, circulator, obviously max defrost and rear defrost. And this is the passenger. The passenger reaches over their left hand, can control their own heated ventilated seats and their temperature if they choose to do so. Obviously, if you're by yourself, just leave the sync on, and whatever you are is whatever the passenger side will be. It's really simple. It's just in a different, unusual format. When I first saw it, I was kind of thought it was clunky, but after doing this for several years, it's second nature to me now. It just is like anything. It's something new. You just got to get used to it.
Yeah, I actually really like it.
Yep. If you ever have the dead fob battery, guess where you put your fob?
Where?
Right here.
Oh, where I keep it
Sensor.
anyway.
The sensor is in the cup holders.
Nice.
Inside the center console, you have USB ports. Sorry, I don't want to invade Jason's privacy here, but you got the little one, the new one, the small one, the standard, and an aux jacks. So for those of you that want to run CD players, you get a Walkman that's shock-proof, and you jack in the aux jack through there if you want to go old school. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that up. Last but not least, glove box. Obviously, the button's here now. You got your glove box. If you have a performance data recorder nav car, the SD card port is right here. And obviously you click it in and out, very similar to the C7.
Yeah.
These here, people ask, these are, we call them the chiclet controls, so they look like chiclets, for those of you that know that candy.
Yep.
These are for your vents. They're across. They look small and teeny, I promise you, they blow extremely hard. Yeah. And what's cool about if you got a 2 and 3 LTE, passenger now also has memory seats. Obviously they're not tied into a steering wheel, heads up, or mirrors, but you see controls you can set for your memory. So that's another plus for the passenger if you get a 2 and a 3 LT.
Nice.
And last but not least, if you got a cell phone with a wireless phone charger, you can pop it right in there and charge it wirelessly. My phone does not have that feature, but this is where you would throw it. And it usually works pretty well even through protectors. So and again, this is a 2 and 3 LT feature. 2 and 3 LTs will also have either the brushed or painted, if you got the stealth interior package speaker woofer here, and of course the Corvette plaque. If you got a museum delivery information with your name will be here. If not, it'll be the regular Corvette info. In this case, all 23s have the 70th anniversary badging.
Love that.
All right, and Jason, that is really about it. That's
right.
your basic overview of your Corvette exterior and interior. I want to thank everybody for sitting through this. I hope I didn't bore you. Treat this as educational. If you've never been in a C8 or just got a C8 and you didn't feel confident in your instruction, I know this is a lot of technical, shall we say, features in these cars. So it's just muscle memory, learn, practice, and rehash. And some of this you may never even use, but at least you know what it does and what it's there for.
Hey, I appreciate it because, again, I didn't get to go through this, and I learned actually quite a few things today about the C8 that I didn't know.
Yeah, so hey, well, good deal.
All right.
So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Again, we're here at Corvette World, Dallas, Carrollton, Texas. Me, SuAnne. We're here to help you. If you're in my Houston area, Matt and Russell down there, we'll get you all squared away. So thank you, everybody, once again, and you all have a happy new year.